everybody, welcome to the. My name is Dalia Khaimov, and I'm an alumni of American University. We're here today with Eliana and Logan to talk about mental health in a foreign country or during a study abroad program.
Mm.
Yay! So this is part of our Fight or Flight Overcoming Study Abroad Fears Week, and we hope that you enjoy this video. So let's start with a quick introduction of you two. So we can start with Eliana and then we can go to Logan.
Okay. So hi, my name is Eliana Pisons, and I'm from Richmond, Virginia. And right now I'm in Kyoto, Japan. So I go to American University, of course, and I'm part of the Soccer Scholars Joint Degree Program, excuse me. And so I'm in Kyoto, Japan with Ritsumeikan University. Um, and I've been here for a year and almost 2 years, year and a half now. But yeah, I'm a third year with international relations, and yep,
Thank you. Thank you.
that's me.
Welcome. Mm.
Awesome. Hi everyone. I'm Logan. I also live in Virginia right now, but my family is in the military, so I've moved around a lot. I am most recently from Fairfax, Virginia. And I also went to American University. I'm an alumni from there. The Soccer Scholar program is how I met Dahlia. We both went to Ritsumeikan University for 2 years in Kyoto, Japan together. And then afterwards, what else do I got for you? Yeah, for me, I studied abroad during my junior and senior years of university, so that's what I'm gonna be basing my experiences on. Look forward to talking with y'all.
Thank you. Thank you. So welcome. I know we're on Zoom. It's because we have all gathered here in different time zones. So thank you both so much for coming despite the struggles. And let's start with a quick and easy question. Have you visited the country of study abroad before your study abroad
I guess I can
Okay,
go.
I'll start. Oh, sorry.
Oh,
So this is pretty quick answer to mine. I have never been to Japan before I studied here, and yeah, I've never been to Japan. This is my first time stepping foot in Japan, like even really experiencing any like real Japanese culture. So I had never once been to Japan before studying abroad here.
Thank you. Logan?
yeah, similar to me. I've never been in Japan before I went there. Because my family's in the military, like my dad had been deployed to Japan for a couple of months before, but that was way back in the 90s. So nothing recent, and I didn't have anyone from Japan in my immediate social circles. So this was my first big exposure, was just getting myself over there and firsthand.
Awesome. Thank you. For me, actually, I have been to Japan before I went for my study abroad program. And I've visited for a long time, so I guess my point of view is going to be kind of different than both of yours. But considering the fact that you haven't been to Japan before you went to your study abroad program, so with before you came, did you have any personal concerns about your mental health or your mental, like how to deal with maybe if you have any mental health like things that you let me start over with that question. I'll edit this out later. But I don't know. Before you came to the country of study abroad, have you had any concerns about mental health care or mental health? We can start with Eliana and then we can go to Logan. I feel like that's the
Okay, so before coming to Japan, I kind of chose Japan off of kind of a whim. I found out about Soccer Scholars. I was like, oh, this is cool. So I applied and now I'm here. So I didn't know too much about Japan, but it seemed very like rigid, strict about mental health. Like I know about like Japan's history, like suicide, so I know mental health is not like a great topic here. So I actually didn't have too many concerns just because I have such a good like structure of support at home, like with my family and friends. And I did know quite a few like of my friends coming over with me, so I wasn't too worried and I didn't have too many worries, but I think once like you get here, you kind of adjust and then that's when it starts to really happen. So I hadn't never had any problems before coming here.
Thank you. Okay,
So yeah.
Logan?
Yeah, pretty similar to Eliana. I think because of our experiences never having gone to Japan before, our primary source of information is going to be news and classes. And so one of the first things you hear in classes about Japan, basically any sociological classes, is going to be about social problems. And some of Japan's biggest social problems stem from mental health crises. Like Eliana said, there's high rates of suicide, there's a lot of loneliness, and there's a lot of just stigmatization about things that don't get talked about enough, um, like in America. So there's lots of problems that I was aware of before I came here, and that's what kind of made me pessimistic about the kind of care I could receive. Like I was on antidepressants and I was getting counseling before I came to Japan, and I was like, well, I don't even know if they'll have counseling in Japan. So I was like, I guess I'll just be medicated and I'll hope for the best. And so that was the plan I had walking forward. Um, yeah,
Thank you. I mean, I know that for our study abroad program specifically, you kind of decide that you're gonna take part in the program before you even apply to the university itself or as you apply to the university itself. So we do this decision kind of early, but it's not for all study abroad programs this way. And considering, well, maybe I'm not sure if you remember, Logan, because we're all graduated now, but maybe Eliana remembers. Like right before you actually applied to university even, did you consider like the, let's say, how the study abroad country deals with mental health, like has not procedures, but let's say like what would you say? Mental health
its approach to mental health,
approach.
maybe.
Okay. So the approach that the country takes for mental health.
Support?
When you say like
Wait, so what was the first part? I'm sorry.
no, it's okay. It's okay. So the general question is that because you applied so early on, right? Do you remember if you had even these concerns, or maybe your parents talked about these concerns with you, or
Mm.
anything like that?
So I remember our advisor being very adamant about saying like the mental health and like just healthcare in general is very different. So make sure you have like your like medicine planned, make sure you have like a bit of a plan beforehand. I wasn't specifically worried because I had never dealt with like too bad of mental health issues before coming here. So I didn't have too much like I said before, like I wasn't making a plan like that, but they definitely did talk a bit about like what is not allowed here, like as for medicine goes, so just be prepared, that type of thing.
Mhm. Okay. Logan, what about you?
Yeah, that wasn't really a factor in my decision, if I'm going to be honest. And I think it's something I'm going to keep talking about for future questions. But it's really easy to plan for your physical health. Like, be like, yes, I have to go to the dentist. It's harder to plan for your mental health. I kind of took that for granted that that would be something that would figure itself out. So yeah, it wasn't really a part of my decision-making process. It's something I knew would have to get taken care of, but it was very much in the background of like this can be dealt with when I get there.
Awesome. Did any of you two have kind of mental health support before you came, but like during your studies in general at AU? If I may ask. If you don't want to answer, that's completely fine.
Um, well, like I keep saying before Japan, I wasn't worried because I kind of like had my mental health issues in Japan. I got diagnosed like when I was in the middle of in Japan. So I didn't have any like like medical support or anything. Like I had my family and my parents are very supportive like emotionally and mentally. So they were kind of my like thing to fall back on. But they're so far away right now, so definitely it's a lot different than at home.
Okay. Logan?
Yeah, for me, I had experience with the AU like student like counseling center. I don't know what they call it. But I had gone there, I had gotten a referral, and I had a really negative experience. So it was nothing through this school. It was all thankfully something I could do like with my own, like my parents' healthcare at the time. So that's how I was getting my support. Um, School was like Eliana said, there were a couple of like things they would say. Specifically, our study abroad advisor would be like, make sure you have a plan for this, this, and this. But beyond mentioning um, things you had to plan for, there was not really much support from the school.
Interesting. Okay. So I kind of feel like what we discussed up till now is that before you came to your study abroad program, I think both of you kind of considered to the amount of knowledge that you had, the cultural aspect of the country itself, right? So if this country has a history or it's famous for it, because I think even if you're not a Japan studies major, you would know that they have a high suicide rate.
Mhm.
But in general, that's something that probably most people would consider before go or choosing their destination, right? It's like the kind of the cultural aspect of it and what do I know about the country? And then kind of Googling a little bit and seeing what you can find from online peoples or online sources as much as you can. But and then, as Logan mentioned, I think that's also a very, very good point is that when it comes to mental health, you can't really pinpoint what it is that you need this compared to the physical health that if you need to go to see a doctor because you broke your leg, right? It's kind of different
Mhm.
than being like, so I'm struggling inside and I need support, right? So I see exactly what you're saying. Thank you. That's a really, really good point. So I'll go to the next question. Um, in general, do you like you you may compare this to your study abroad location if you would like, but the question that comes more from how much the move might have affected your personal experience with the mental health. So, what is the situation in your country or where you came from before the study abroad with mental health care? So, is it more developed? Is it less developed? Do you have experience with it or not? I think Eliana generally said that she hasn't had it until she came to Japan, so maybe that's kind of a Logan question.
Yeah, I can answer this if that's all right with you, Eliana. So, just like again, background for me, moving in general, I've moved a lot as a kid, so this is something I'm used to, and I'm used to making new friends and being the only new face somewhere. So I wasn't really too concerned about that part, but about just mental health care in the US. So I think this is not going to be shocking to anyone, but mental health care is very expensive. And if you can't afford it, there's also a very high learning curve to actually getting the care that you want that suits you. So um, in high school, I was, first referred to some counseling, and because of how difficult it was, and now people around me and always talked about like the importance of going to therapy, but at the same time, I knew how expensive going to therapy was. Um, I was just so grateful that I had a therapist. I didn't even consider that they wouldn't be supporting me the way I needed, if that makes sense. Like, for example, I didn't consider there are multiple styles of therapy. that was something I had no idea about before I started it. So these were all things that I wish I had known. And because it's talked about so little, and again, there's platitudes of you need to seek therapy, it's good for you, but there's very little about the details of accessing the system, about trying out counseling or other whatever support system you mechanism you need. Um, and so my experience was really um, quite bumpy, I would say, at the start, because a lot of it was me being like, okay, once I see this person or this doctor, my problems will stop. Mission accomplished. And that, that was very much naive and not the case, as I learned over the years. So it took a couple of, I think, attempts for me. So I think throughout high school and then when I moved to AU for college, I was like on my third counselor that I just tried out, and I'd finally found someone who I felt the right amount of support by. And that's where I started feeling comfortable about like asserting like this is what I want from my doctors. And this is the kind of, system or, support system, as Eliana was saying, that I need to have in place for myself.
Mm, okay. And I would say that from the moment that you found that comfortable place, that's when you kind of also had to go to the study abroad program, right?
Yes, that's the hard part. So
Oh man. Oh my gosh. Uh-huh.
So yeah, I really had found someone I really liked, and I felt like I was getting a lot of good advice from. And then a couple months afterwards, we got confirmed to go to Japan. So that was something that was a little bit bittersweet. I was like, yes, I finally have like I think a good standard of like how I want to be treated, and what I want to get from this. But again, it was only for a short while, so take what we can get.
I have to say, I'm kind of glad that you went through the process and you actually found someone that you like because now that I think back, we both, I'm not sure about Eliana, but I know that we both started during COVID time, our degrees.
Hmm.
So we started from online lessons and then we went to kind of hybrid dorm, pretty much nobody in there situation. And like it was very interesting. And then we started the real, in-person classes. But Eliana, did you experience COVID during your studies?
No, I was in high school during COVID.
Ah, no! That might even be a little worse.
It wasn't too bad because I had a graduation, so it like
Okay.
just missed my senior year.
Okay. There should be somewhere a prom. Is that where there's a prom?
I had prom still. It was during my sophomore year and then like early junior year.
I'm so glad. I'm so happy for you. But I know that for us, we had to go through the online like studying thing for about a year. So to know that you actually found a good healthcare provider, mental healthcare provider, for you, even after like the COVID probably had also a lot of an impact on everybody's mental health. So for you as well to be able to find a good and comfortable place to share and open up is really important. Honestly, I'm happy for you.
Yeah, just one small thing about that. One thing I'm grateful for about COVID was that doctors started seeing people virtually. So that really helped when I was trying to figure out what kind of counseling I wanted. I didn't have to drive, 30 minutes to go see someone. I could just see if I clicked with them and then log off. So that sort of flexibility really did help
And I was
for
actually
me.
going to ask as well if that's something like the virtual meetings was something that you utilized while you were in Japan. So I'm going to get into the next question and then we'll kind of get
Mhm.
an answer to that naturally. But can you both tell us about specifically an experience that you'd be open to share with everybody about a situation or anything that happened to you while you were studying abroad that concerns your mental health? Let's start with Eliana and go to Logan.
Sure. So I had like two things going on in kind of like the winter time. Like you never really know how you're gonna feel in another place, and Japan is definitely completely different than America. So part of my culture shock was definitely like people's bodies, and I was like into the gym, like I was into that kind of thing. So like I kind of developed a bad like eating disorder a bit in Japan because I'm a lot bigger than everyone. I'm taller. Like in America, I'm kind of similar, but in here or here in Japan, like everyone's so small, smaller than me, and like the portion sizes are much different than what I'm used to. So I developed that, and for like a few months, I finally opened up to my mom, and she was very supportive, but I tried to like find counseling for this because it was getting a bit out of hand, and I did not want to see a Japanese therapist because I thought that it might be too like much of a culture like block maybe for that. So I opted for virtual in America, a virtual therapist. Um so I saw two people, and the first one like first I didn't like either of them. It was definitely a process, and I I ended up stopping after two people because I felt like it was not going anywhere. And like Logan said before, it was very costly. Like it was $480 for two online sessions. And I just felt like they were not kind of talking to me and seeing me the way I needed to. So a big contributor to kind of like my issues with eating, like eating disorders and stuff, was actually I went back to America during August, and I was having like troubles with like kind of depression and all that. And we kind of saw a correlation with my doctor and like my period. And it turns out she believes that I have something that's kind of new, and like we're speaking about it more to this day, is like PDD, like premenstrual dysphoric depression is what it's called. And so she actually diagnosed me with that. I got like antidepressants for it. And so I came back to America, or I came back to Japan, and I had my medicine and I was feeling much better. So that is definitely a plus. Going back to America and feeling like seen by the doctor, a doctor here that they would have like been able to pinpoint that like they did, just because it's kind of hard to find. I feel like periods and mental health kind of is not talked about. Oh, is it frozen for me?
Sometimes it gets stuck.
Yeah, your
Oh
video is kind
shoot.
of stuttering a little bit.
It's okay. We can wait a second.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, it's okay.
Is it? Oh, okay. Okay, it's unfrozen now. But yeah, like I was saying, I didn't feel confident in the doctors here. So I'm really happy that I was able to go who like was comfortable, like was used to me and that sort of thing. So yeah, but now I'm here, and unfortunately it's a bit hard for me to get medicine just because of like I have to go to the ward office to get my mental or my health insurance again. So, and I've been a bit busy. So I haven't been able to do that yet, and I have felt like a bit more struggle right now, but at least I can recognize it and kind of deal with it. And definitely, yeah, it was definitely an experience that I have never had before in America, like in my life. And it was probably a little bit harder being in a whole other country, like 6,000 miles away from friends and family. So I'm glad that it's settled now, but it was definitely difficult last semester, or not last semester, last year.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yeah.
First of all, thank you for sharing. And
Yeah.
that's really um it's really good for me to hear like your experience because I didn't have these types of experience while I was studying abroad, but it's very, very interesting to see that for you it was um the comparison between you and the people in the country about study abroad, like the locals, right? So how you place yourself among them or among the people in the study abroad program, and then how that sometimes unexpectedly could go towards a struggle, or could some people are fine. But the point is that culture shock is not just something that could happen, for 1 day or 2 days. It's not just something that is because suddenly I see everything new around me. It's also the way that it's the way that you react to what it is that you see. So, and then understanding that, oh, do I leave this the way that I feel or react alone, or do I actually do something about it? So, understanding that there is something to do about it, and sometimes it requires a third person opinion, and it's something bigger than yourself, something that you can deal with just yourself, is really, really important. And I really appreciate your point of view on that. Um, in
Thank
addition,
you.
you're saying now that you get medication and you're trying to figure out how to, um, well, be like have a smooth process with it. But I also know that, certain countries have certain restrictions for the medication and all of that. You can get this medication in your study abroad program? And did you try to kind of search before you came back again to Japan, if you like if you could access it, or how would you deal with it? Kind of, could you add a little bit on that? Is that okay?
Yeah. So I was sent back to Japan with like 3 months of medication, so I was good with that. But then I ran out, and unfortunately, or fortunately, the medication is pretty like widespread. Like it's Lexapro, I think, and so Japan does allow it. Um, so yeah, I just had to go to get my health insurance fixed, and I'm sure that I could get the medicine if I visit the school psychiatrist. So I know that you can set up appointments with them, and they're able to prescribe you medicine. But I have had problems with prescriptions here before, so I'm not too confident about it, but I haven't tried yet, so we'll see. But yeah, they do allow it here.
I'm glad, and I hope that you get it. Like, I hope it works out, and it's as smooth as it can be, even though it's a real struggle. And it probably, I also know that you're during your finals uh week right now, right? Like finals term.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it's a big struggle
Mhm.
and a burden when you're trying to, study and work and do what is like experience, right, the study abroad program. And then, it's hard for you to access the medication that you need. That just I hope that it would go as smoothly as possible. I really do.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for sharing. Um,
Thank you.
Logan, floor is yours.
Yeah, so I guess the best way to introduce what I went through is that I knew I had a lot of problems with anxiety before I went to Japan. But again, because of how I think frantic the planning was and the preparations for moving abroad was, my list of needs, like my clothes, like having some place to live and knowing all that stuff about like how to get to school and all that, that was a lot higher priority than like making sure I had enough medication and stuff like that. So this wasn't something I really thought about until a couple months into the program. Um, and at this time, again, study abroad is a limited time thing. And so that kind of puts a lot of pressure, I think, on people to get the most while out of whatever experience while they're there. So for me, that translated into I joined as many clubs as I could. I was doing a lot of activities that first semester that I was there. And I loved it. I really enjoyed all the things I was doing and the people I was meeting, and they were so nice. And I was making a lot of friends, and just feeling really good about, my place. Um, and I didn't really realize that it was having an effect on me mentally, until about maybe 3 months in, um, when I noticed that during one of my club practices, I was doing Aikido at the time, which is a martial art. um, that I would get, or I would start like to disassociate during practices. So what that means for me is that I would get so anxious that I didn't feel like I was really there. Um, the practice just kind of happened and I witnessed it. I couldn't tell you what I said, who I spoke to, or what we did. And all of a sudden it'd be over and I'd kind of go home. That happened not once, but a couple of times. And I was like, hmm, I don't think I'm enjoying this. It really took me a second to realize that I don't think that's normal, for me to walk away from something and be like, I could not tell you what we did or, um, how I felt during that time. So that's when I realized, I needed to take a break from that, and maybe start, seeing, some help. So. The next couple of steps for me, once I realized that I was having a problem, was that I went to the school doctor. Um, I had medication, like Eliana said, like it was antidepressants, the ones I was on. I made sure I had something that was approved in Japan. So I just got a prescription from him. And then I talked about, feeling my feelings, and then he recommended me to the school counseling center. Um, and again, I sat on that recommendation for a while. It wasn't something I felt comfortable moving on, because of all that I've heard about Japan and its mental health care. I was like, um, kind of daunting, I would say. Um, and I guess I'm getting ahead of myself, so I'll backtrack a little bit. This whole time, like while I'm, going to do all these club things, I'm taking care of myself. I'm taking in Japan, it's all in Japanese, which is a language that I didn't really know that well at the time. So when I was seeing a doctor and telling him, hey, I need this medication, I have this problem, that was all in Japanese, which meant before I went to each appointment, I would go on my phone and I'd be like, what is this word? Because what my language teachers didn't teach me, was mental health vocabulary. They taught me how to say my leg was broken, like Jolly had said, but they didn't teach me how to say I'm not feeling well or I'm feeling stressed all the time. So those are all new words I had to learn or teach myself, before I went to these appointments. Um, and so because of that, when he gave me this recommendation, I was like, well, I'm glad this recommendation exists, but I can't do that in Japanese.
Mm.
Like, the whole point was that I think I was just so exhausted by, this disconnect between not being able to express everything I wanted to at that time, the way I wanted to. So that was another obstacle for me, and that was something that was really, adding a lot of stress in social situations. So, for that to also be added on to counseling was too much. So that was what made me like stop even trying for a bit. Um, And then I realized even when I stopped going to these practices, I tried to make some changes in my life that I wasn't really feeling that much better. I still felt like, I had this weight on me. So that's when I sort of got over myself and I was like, okay, I have to ask. So I sent an email to the center and I was like, hey, I made it very clear, like, I'm looking for someone, if you have a counselor who can speak in English, if they could speak with me, that would be great. Um, and they got back to me and replied, yes, they did. So all of that time I had spent sort of, worrying and sort of, twiddling my thumbs, sort of just amounted to nothing. I kind of wasted my own time there, and I really regret that. Not asking for help when I could have a little earlier. So that whole transition from, going into Japan, exhausting myself by trying all these things, stopping and then seeing a doctor and getting a recommendation, that all took a long time. Um, and I would say it uh, taught me, I think, two very important things. Um, so I think one thing we kind of take for granted in the United States is how expensive healthcare can be. So before I, made any visits to the doctor in Japan, like my first visit, I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna like the bill that they're gonna give me.
Mm.
So that's one thing I learned was because Japan has universal healthcare system and because I was covered at that time, um, that meant that going to that doctor, that potentially seeing a counselor was affordable. It was something I could take care of on my own, which I was really grateful for. And then the second thing I learned was that, even though before I went to Japan, I had, all these preconceptions about Japanese society at large and their problems with mental health. And to some extent, that was true. Like with my friends that I had made, a lot of people never talked about their own feelings or how they were doing and stuff like that, that I think you would expect from a friendship in America. Um, the people that I needed that support from most, so the doctors, the nurses, anyone I talked to in the healthcare profession, I was really surprised by how much they knew and how open they were to me when I talked to them. So that contrast there between the general like awareness among the people that I was around and the professionals who worked in that space kind of struck me. So I was grateful that I was feeling like listened to and people were considerate of me when I was asking for help. And that was really nice. Um, and yeah, I think that kind of wraps up my experience.
Thank you, Logan. Actually, I think you had so many good points, but I think one of them is the maybe how we view the difference between bias and awareness. So the way that being aware is very important, right? Like we all kind of consider like we're going to study abroad. This place is different than what we know and what we have grown up in.
Hmm.
But and that would mean also cultural differences. That also means the things that are more basic in life, even if it's food or, living and then healthcare. These all things are different, and we need to understand that and do our best to the best of our abilities, right? Learn what we can before we go. On the other hand, the things that we learn, we have to be able to differentiate, but what, and then by differentiating it you can be more effective or outgoing with how you deal with your healthcare, right? So if you know that, oh, in this country, they kind of have these kind of health problems, mental health problems, or they have this kind of culture that would cause them to have this kind of social problem, that might stop us from trying to help our own situation because we think we already know, right? And then we will say, maybe, in this country, it's not going to work without trying. So important is that it's good to be aware, but not to let that awareness become a bias and stop you from at least trying to reach out or ask for help, which can happen in a study abroad because it's a different country, right? So I think it's a really, really good point and is very important to pass on to anybody else that ever studies abroad. Um, that these are like really great stories with really good, big, juicy advice, for people that need it. I think it was really, really awesome. What can you, let's say, what can you advise people if they go on a study abroad program before they go, or maybe if they have any concerns now? Like, what would you like to tell them?
Well, I think in my situation, I think my saving grace was definitely my mother. And so I want to emphasize building your structure of support. Like when a therapist didn't work for me, they didn't know me, I didn't feel comfortable with how they were talking. I always went to my mom, and I think I put a big burden on her, and she was definitely worried about me. But in the end, she was really able to give me the best advice and give me the most like support I needed. Um, and yeah, even far away, I was able to text her. Like she's told me she would leave like her notifications on even if she's sleeping. So even I knew like if I had any problems, I could go to her, as well as also creating your like support system in Japan or in your own country of study abroad. It might be scary like talking to people that you don't exactly know too well about your mental health, but like I was talking to people I had just met that year in the dormitory about like I I had kept like the secret of like what I was doing about my eating disorder. Like I had kept it secret, and it was really like eating at me because I had never done anything like this and it was really weird to me. So it was really nice to kind of like let that burden out by just speaking to someone that I know like they won't report me or like do anything like weird. Like they're just an ear to listen. So I think finding someone that you can just talk about your issues with without any like burdens or anything is really important. And that has been like the most helpful thing for me, as well as getting medication, of course, finding the the good medication for you. But I think speaking to people was the most important thing for me.
You, Logan?
Yeah, I would just echo what Eliana said, 'cause it's really important. So I'm gonna say it again. You have to build your own support system, and that takes both time and intention. When I was studying abroad, I had friends that I already talked to online, and I was grateful for that experience because I had habits of how to stay in contact with all my friends in America over long distance and over time zone differences. And that really helped. But again, that took work. It wasn't something I could just do casually. I had to really make an effort to stay in touch with them, and them with me. But it really paid off. Um, and then I had sort of two things that I wanted to give advice about. Dahlia, you mentioned one of them, so good on you. But I think for my story, one of the lessons is to be open-minded. Um, and that's both about the care you can receive and sort of your own experience. I got in my own way. I was so nervous about how I would be treated that I didn't bother trying. Because what I didn't realize while I was there is that I can walk away. If I don't like something, I don't have to be there. And that's really simple, but it was really powerful. Like, I don't have to stay with something if it doesn't work for me. And so, even if you're worried about how this country's system might treat you, at least make an attempt. And if it doesn't work out, at least you know it didn't work out for you. At least try having exhausted your resources. In my case, it worked out very well. I'm grateful. Um, and the second thing I want to talk about is sort of be proactive. So in my case, what I did was a lot of responding to my symptoms when they got really bad. And so that made it really stressful and everything felt really overwhelming to handle it because I had sort of waited until my problems became as heavy as they could possibly be before I tried to like lift them or like move them to somewhere else, like take care of them. So, unfortunately, this is true for me. A lot of the really simple advice that people give about mental health, talking with friends, going outside for a walk, it works. It makes me mad, but it works. So I noticed that when I literally made like half an hour to in my day to like be by myself, to go for a walk, um, to make dinner for myself, do something I enjoyed. That small change really made a really, really big difference in my week. So being aware of how I'm feeling and trying to, pump the brakes before, something bad happens, I feel like that's a really important aspect of taking care of yourself.
Thank you. I
Oh,
100%
I also
agree.
wanted to add.
Oh, add.
Oh, sorry. Oh, it just made me think of like when I was going through it, like you need your system of support, but also like how you deal with stress. Like you need steps. uh, I'm thinking of a word, like how you deal with stress. Like
Stress
I'm not
response?
sure.
For coping,
Coping.
Yes, yes, like that. Yes, yes, yes. Like I found that I like some things would trigger like my responses and it would be more reactive and it would cause me to do like bad things to my body. And I think if I had developed better like stress, like coping mechanisms, I think that would have definitely helped me um in the long run because I was like smoking cigarettes and like doing that because I was so stressed. And I think definitely like being more mindful of that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I discussed it in a different video about the concept of stress. And not about the concept, but we've definitely mentioned this idea that when you study abroad, you are gonna be in a different place and saying, oh, I'll be fine. It's kind of unwise. You need to understand that we're all in like it's not about being special or being unique or being strong. It's about understanding that going into a new environment is naturally going to give some kind of toll. So being prepared for that just makes you uh wiser slash uh you'll later thank yourself for that, as in you'll be there. Um Another point that I wanted to mention about what Logan mentioned as well, I think Eliana's insecurities while she was in Japan is that, language, learning specific phrases before you come here, it's very hard to pinpoint what it is that you need to know, right? It's like people like there are courses in the university that you take for language learning. There are people that choose their study abroad program without considering the language. I'm gonna go here, I don't know the language, but I'm just gonna go ahead and do it, right? Um, but really knowing these certain like of course food, water, like survival, right? But it's kind of like I'm hurt, I'm sad, I need help. Knowing this would be, I can't even imagine if I didn't know how to say I need help, like how will people help me, right? So considering and knowing that is really, really important, I think. And I kind of want to ask like kind of a discussion point slash what you guys think. Um, I feel like what some students think is that because they assume that everything will be all right, they don't really consider a what if situation of going back. So, what if you're in this study abroad and I don't like it? It's giving a toll on me, or I need to go back to my family at least once, right? It's not really something that's in the expenses, right? When you think earlier on, you're kind of like, you get kind of this list, oh, I need to have money. There isn't really a section that says, sometimes we just need to go home. Can you afford that? Like, is there something that you can do maybe before? Like, some people just don't have the expenses, and I understand that. But if you can think of it and say, maybe I should save up a little bit more money so that I can, in case something happens, I can come back. Some people rely maybe on their parents or maybe they don't, right? But considering the fact that you might need to go back home while you're at the study abroad and then come back there, or you just need to stop in the middle and go back, having that option is really important. And being like, oh, I won't go home because I don't have the money or the means to do it. That's we got that's kind of like unfortunate, I would say. Go.
Yeah, I can comment something about this. So this kind of deals with the length of the program that I was in. So I was there for 2 years. And initially I was like, well, going to Japan is so expensive. I don't think I'll ever be able to come back. So I have to stay here for all 2 years. And that was the mindset I'd entered with. Um, and then life happened. Someone in my family died. Someone in my family got married. So I had to go back to the US twice,
Party in the party.
um, both good and bad. Um, but I really didn't think about how much I had missed my friends and how much of an obstacle being abroad would be to communication with them. Like literally just getting to spend a week during like a shared break with someone in America was so nice for me and it helped me like reconnect and feel like energized to go back. And then on the other side of the spectrum, let's say like while I was in Japan and I was still in that mindset of like I have to be here, like I can't go home, like I have to tough it out. Um, no one else thinks like that. So even if I was determined, all of my friends that I had made in Japan, they went home. All international students that I knew, they went home. So during summer or winter break, I was by myself a lot. So if you're gonna have a year-long program or something where there's a big break, you have to consider that, yeah, people are gonna want to go home, and you have to plan for the fact that whatever network you have there might not be there during that break. That was something I had to learn the hard way, and all of a sudden entertain myself for a week or two.
No, I remember. Like, I remember that era when the door was just empty.
Mhm.
Wow. Could literally hear the
Yeah.
crickets. Oh my gosh. I think there was a cricket in the dorm. Like, I'm not even kidding. So, yeah, I get it. 100%.
I had a similar like experience because I was like you, Logan. Oh, I'm also in a 2-year program, and I told my parents I was not gonna come home like within the 2 years. They told me that they budgeted. Thankfully, was I'm very blessed that they budgeted one trip for me to come home. But I told them like, no, I'm not gonna go home. I'd rather travel with like my money. Like I don't want to spend $2,000 to go back home because it is really expensive. And then I ended up kind of being at a low point, and I was like, Mom, I really need to go home right now. Like I really need to see them. So I'm really glad that I did. But yeah, a lot of people they do go home, like even if they're here for only like a year or
Mhm.
like not a semester, but if they're here for a year, they will still go home like every single break. So I think that is definitely a kind of a unique mindset that we had to stick it out here.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, there are study abroads that are just there are 1 semester or they could be 1 year, right? And the 1 semester, I would say, if your health, your mental health is in jeopardy, right? And when I'm saying jeopardy, you're really concerned. Everybody's concerned from your house, and they're telling you to come home, but you're like, oh, it's just a half year, I'll come back. You could stick it out and exhaust the resources you have in that country. Or, when it comes to mental health, maybe just listen to the advice and go back home if you can, right? Um, like I would love to sit here and be like, stick it to the end, you got this, but I'm not a health professional and I do not know what is best for everybody. So in the case of even for me, if I thought that I'm in a situation where my mental health is at stake, I hope that I had enough money to go back home. I wish I would have prepared for this earlier, right? So even for me, I would probably advise, consider an emergency and make sure that if it
Mhm.
comes, you can and you have the means to respond. So if you need to go back home, then you can go back home. If you're fine, then you got extra ice cream money, just get another pizza, it's not a big deal, but um, you can save it up. But I think it's really important. And especially as, if you can get the service that you need, like the mental health care that you need, mental health care. That's the word I've been looking for the whole interview, and it came in the end. You're like, what? Yeah, so if you need the mental health care and the best and the one that you feel most comfortable with is in your home country, it's no shame to go back home and it's no embarrassment. It's something that should be done and should be welcomed, right? So I think yeah, I don't know. I'm so glad that you guys opened up and shared about this. I think it'll be so helpful and eye-opening for not only for undergrad students, I think maybe even parents are really worried about their, family
Yeah.
living and studying abroad. So if they need, to watch this video and kind of get a little bit of reassurance of what can be done or what can be prepared beforehand, I think it'll be nice. So thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank
I was glad
you.
about it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So, thanks everybody for coming to watch the video. I hope that you took something from it. I definitely did. So Eliana and Logan, thank you again, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. Bye.
Bye.
Kawaii. Okay.
Thank you.